Welcome to the Saturday in Athens podcast. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, joined as always by my co-host, James Kim. Homie, it is the day after Christmas. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Hope everybody else had a Merry Christmas. And yeah, man, another year in the books. This is what, is this year 5 of us doing the show? 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, year 5.
February we'll have the 5th year anniversary.
Yeah, February will be 5 years. So, yeah, man. Jimmy and I we don't really get to talk a ton this time of year normally, so we're just taking a rare opportunity to kind of catch up, recap some of the stuff from this year, and talk about some things that are going on in the college landscape at large. We were talking off air because we're talking, I don't know, a couple of hours after Jim Larrañaga officially announced that he is leaving the University of Miami as their head basketball coach. And just kind of talking about the landscape of college sports in general, right? And how transfer portal and NIL is changing things and how they look. Jimmy and I were talking about how one of the things that Larrañaga cited as the reason that he was leaving was he's just exhausted. And the wheels started turning for him when after their Final Four run, he had like 8 kids come and say they were going to put their name in the portal and kind of see how things looked. And dude, he's not the only one, right? Like Tony Bennett announced like 48 hours before the season started that he was leaving. We're talking a coach that won a national title at UVA. And then I think the other shift with that, which we didn't touch on, but we're also coming off a week where Mike Vick was announced as the new head coach at Norfolk State. Yeah. I saw something today, which I don't know if it was real or fake, because sometimes it's hard to tell nowadays, especially on social media. But did you see this stuff about Deshaun Jackson being possibly named as the head coach of Delaware State?
I did see that. I'm not sure how many, like if that has legs or not, but it's only a matter of time before schools that don't have a ton of money start bringing in bigger name people to attract talent. Mm-hmm. And I mean, with these retired players who don't necessarily need the money but still want to be attached to the game, why not?
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, Deion has provided a path for that, and I think universities would be silly not to look at the success he had and the relevance that he gave to Jackson State, and then now what's happening at Colorado. I mean, you're talking about Colorado just had a Heisman Trophy winner, and that was all because of Deion, right? Like the only reason Travis Hunter is at Colorado is because of Deion. The only reason Travis Hunter was at Jackson State was because of Deion. And so I think you're seeing other schools now make that choice. And I'll kind of in the same vein with the Mike Vick thing, before the Norfolk State announcement, he had been floated that he was going to go to Sacramento State, right?
Yeah.
And one of the big stories about that was, Sacramento State's going to have $50 million NIL fund. That's what their booster group, their NIL group has committed to and kind of the fundraising they're going to do. And then Mike Vick wasn't announced as their head coach, but one of our favorites, Brendan Marion, taking the go-go offense to Sacramento to be the head coach of the Hornets. And I read some stories that I think the ultimate push there is they're an FCS school and in the Big Sky, but I think their path is they want to elevate and possibly be in the conversations for the Pac-12 or what's going to become the new Pac-12. And man, it's wild. And I think that has to be true because I don't know that Brendan Marion takes that job if that's not true, right? Like I think that had to be what he was told is that we are going to go Power 5 or, whatever, we're going to go D1 essentially. Yeah. We're going to get out of the FCS realm because I think otherwise his path was likely to go take a Power 4 OC job until he could get a head coaching job. Whereas I think this is kind of a good pocket.
Or he could probably get a lower tier group of five head coaching job to start off with.
Yeah, 100%.
Like he's definitely an up and comer.
Yeah, for sure. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But yeah, man, it's wild. I mean, we had, I can't remember, we talked about this last episode, but I can't remember if it was Chris Marlar or if it was Chris Phillips that talked to us about, maybe it was Chris Phillips that talked to us about, maybe Kirby's shelf life in Athens is going to be maybe only 5 or 6 years, which I think is feasible, to be honest with you. I mean, especially if you look, the years have been hard the last 10 for him. I mean, if you look at the day he was hired to present day, man, them coaching years are
I mean,
you aging dog years.
just look at from COVID on. Like, let's not
Yeah,
even look from
yeah,
2016 to 2019. Like, just
yeah.
COVID on has aged a lot of these coaches. I mean, we talked about it off air, but the Larinaga thing and the Bennett thing kind of, those are big time head coaches in college basketball, and we've seen some college football head coaches take OC jobs. Like, Kelly stepped down, but UCLA wasn't on the path to be, a national title contender. Miami necessarily wasn't either, but UVA, they had a Final Four run. Miami was going to compete. They were going to make the tournament. They were going to have a shot. Same thing with UVA. These are coaches that are stepping down. It's only a matter of time before one big time head coach in college football steps down to go back to a coordinator position, or takes a leave to, for a year or two and tries to rejuvenate themselves to see if they want to come back, or just to see what this revenue sharing is going to be. Because they're just exhausted. Or we see one try to jump to the NFL. I think that's less likely because it's just such a hard jump, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a college head coach jump to be a coordinator. I mean, we've seen that happen a bunch.
Look at Gus Malzahn. Look at Gus Malzahn.
It's just not worth it for college head coaches anymore, especially the older they get. If they're an established coach and they don't need that validation anymore, I mean, the young and hungry ones, sure, they're always going to want to get to the top of the mountain. But if you've been to the top of the mountain and you don't need it anymore, I could see him stepping down.
Dude, the UVA thing's interesting too, because the Bennett stuff came off of 18 months after Bronco Mendenhall steps away. And I thought he was a great hire by them when they hired him, and then he walks away. And to your point, he came back. What is he? He was New Mexico State, and now is it Utah State? Or no, where was he? Was somewhere before, but then took the Utah State job. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think to your point, it's going to continue to happen. Like, this is just the landscape now. I think guys are going to be exhausted. I think the things you have to deal with is changing. I think you're seeing it with the installment of GMs in these programs, especially in the big programs, where they're going to have to monitor, what the quote unquote salary cap is going to be each year. I mean, all of it it's a changing dynamic, man. And there was another story, I don't know, maybe it was last week, that came out in The Athletic about when a bunch of the athletic directors and power brokers in the college game were out in Vegas for the award shows. Those groups that are pushing this Super League concept presented again. And I think those conversations are going to continue to be had, because why not, right? I mean, you're moving towards a singular model anyways with how the pay structure is going to go. I don't know long-term how it's sustainable to have all of these separate entities under a hat, which they're currently, I mean, there really is no governing body, right? Like, the NCAA has no teeth.
Yeah.
And so who enforces any of this stuff? And I think what's happened currently is they're just going through the United States government with the courts and legislation. Well, dude, that's not sustainable. So something's going to have to change. And I think the only way probably that is sustainable long-term, given the current model, is, homie, they're going to have to unify. The conferences as we know it is gonna go away. And I know that the big sticking point on that is you've got the SEC and the Big Ten saying, well, we don't have to do that. And maybe they're right. They position themselves in a way where they have so much of the bargaining chip, and surely the ratings this year from the ESPN package that the SEC signed are going to buoy that argument. But I don't know, man. I think it's one of those things where it's just going to become inevitable. Like, I think there's going to be so many factors at play with the comp piece that something's going to have to give. I think what happened was, man, this change needed to happen. Okay. I think we've been very public that I'm good with NIL, and I'm good with players getting compensated in the market. I have no issues with that. Okay. I probably have a little more issue with the completely free and untethered transfer market. I think that's a little bit different. But I think the flip side of that is, scholarships are 1-year contracts essentially. So unless we're going to guarantee these kids 3 years of free education, which scholarships formally did not do that, they were 1 year renewing contracts. So like, I don't know, man. It's a weird model, but I think what happened is they opened the gates to all this stuff with zero plan. I mean, less than zero plan. And so now we have what we have, which is you're almost in some ways trying to put the toothpaste back in the bottle, and like you can't do it. I mean, you can't put it back in a tube. So I don't know, man. It's an ever changing piece, and I just think in some ways we have to reconcile that it will never again be what it was. And
yeah, it won't. But there are models out there. Now, granted, they're not in this country, but there are models out there to where this could still college football. I want to preface that, could follow. Like European soccer has a model that would work with this. And I don't mean the relegation. I mean, I like that, but that's me personally. But I mean, you have different leagues, and then whoever wins those leagues goes and plays a championship.
mm-hmm.
So that is still possible. And you want to take the money aspect from it, especially for the, Power 4, 5 if Pac-12 comes back, and the smaller schools. If you get a player from a smaller school to transfer to you, you have to then pay that school. Just like in European soccer, if you basically buy a player's contract, you still have to pay that player, but you then pay that club. Like there is a model out there that has been around forever and works. Like you have a basis. I'm not saying you take it like one for one, but you have a basis of a model that works, and you can take that and build a structure around it that works for college football. Let's be realistic. We are calling this college football because these are university uniforms. It is no longer really going to be college football when all this is said and done. It's just not. We are still going to root for these teams, and there's still going to be the pageantry that we love for it, but it's basically going to be pay for play, which it's become. And we are just going to have to accept that. And it's been that, but now it's out in the open. So, I mean, it's just one of those things, like all these older people who like are all up in arms about it. It's like, it's always been going on under the table. Like how many people would talk about the cabin at Auburn? Like anytime, they would lose a recruit. They must have gone to the cabin at Auburn and got dropped a bag, or the McDonald's bags at Tennessee, like stuff like that. It's been going on forever.
Sure.
It's just now out in the open.
Yeah. So, no. I don't debate that. And I mean, look, man, it's not just college football. I mean, look, men's basketball is going through the same stuff. College baseball is going through the same stuff. I mean, look at all the people that Georgia added in the transfer portal for the baseball team. And I think, baseball, I think, is probably ripe for the pickings as much as any, because what happens is you got an 18-year-old kid that goes to a mid-major, plays well, and then you have a program like Georgia go, well, we got to fill a spot. And you hit 20 home runs at Creighton last year. So come play for us. And like, obviously the pool for a traditional non-revenue generating sport like baseball, what's Creighton going to say? We don't have a pool to give you money to play baseball here. And so like, you're going to lose on that. I mean, dude, they're having the conversations about expansion of the NCAA basketball tournament, which seems crazy. I mean, you talk about a perfect product. Like, why go bigger than it currently is? But I will say this, man. I was having this conversation with somebody last week. College basketball, I think, has benefited from NIL and the transfer portal maybe more than any, because there's such a small professional pool for basketball that you have kids who are like really, really fringy to play in the NBA, but now can stay in college and make some money. And it makes the college game, I think, better, instead of these kids going to Europe or trying to hang around in the G League or something like that, right? Like, I do think there's benefits to the model. I think, to go back to your point about the soccer model, is that I think the main difference between that is we are still living in this, I don't want to say fantasy because it is real, but dude, things are determined by the academic calendar. It's like the transfer window. You got backup quarterbacks at playoff schools that have to leave in order to enter the transfer portal so they can stay within the confines of the academic calendar, and then can't finish the season with their team, and they would like to, right? Yeah. And the university would like them to. So I don't know. They got to figure something out with that. I mean, I think in some ways we gotta let go of this fantasy that like they are student athletes because they're really not. Like, why is it a big deal if the kid from Penn State starts at Mizzou February 15th? Like, who cares?
See, this is where this is where it's really great, because you have to keep the same set of rules for everybody, but it's, you're talking about Pribola, but what about the backup punter that transfers? You know what I mean?
But here's my thing. I think it's the same for all of them, right? Like they're all in the market. And so
I
like,
agree with that, but it's like they're all in the market, but Pribola is getting, let's say $100,000, whereas the punter's not getting anything. He's just transferring because he wants to have a shot to play.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, as far as the transfer time, like he's actually getting a scholarship, and that's what he's actually getting. So for him, it's like he has to be enrolled for classes or take a semester off. So for him, it's more about it's the school, and that he's not actually getting any money out of it. That's where this gets so sticky, is because not all, 105 or whatever it is with the walk-ons are actually getting anything with,
But
not every school.
but this is what I'm saying, man. Like, how many people change jobs and are tying up things at job A and kind of starting at job B? Like, that happens, right? Like, it's a normal thing in the market. So like, why aren't we just treating it the same way? I just think it's wild. Like, dude, so what if classes start January 18th and they're not actually going to enroll until January 25th? Like,
And for the
who
record,
cares?
I agree with you. I think it's absolutely stupid, especially because most universities have will have you can
Online
take 12 week
classes?
online classes. You can take 12-week courses, 8-week courses, and you can stagger your courses that way. So you don't technically have to enroll. Like, you can say, hey, I'm going to this university. I'm going to start my classes February 12th or whatever it is, and I'm going to take my courses all this semester are going to be 12-week courses. You can do that. So why does it matter that I have to be here January, 2nd, like on campus? Like, it doesn't make a difference.
No.
But for some reason, when it comes to college football is the only one this affects, we have to have this these pigeonholes. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and I think it's obviously the problem has been compounded by the extension of the postseason, because what happens now is that it used to be you could still kind of fudge it and be fine because the season would have been over January 10th, January 11th, somewhere in that window at the latest. So you could still have a kid technically enroll. But now there's no way they're getting in under these windows if they are potentially going to be playing till January 20th, January 21st in these pockets. So like, man, it's just it's something they got to figure out though. Cause like, I also think it's crazy that you got teams preparing for conference championship games where kids are having to decide, okay, well, I need to enter the portal because I don't want school A to get somebody else before I'm in the mix. Right.
Yeah.
And so they got to figure something out, because it's just, I don't think it's good for anybody. But to go back to the original point, this is why you have people leaving, because you have coaches who are like, I don't want to deal with any of this. Like, I'm over it. I don't want to do it. The flip side of it is you got UNC hiring somebody like Bill Belichick, because they're essentially saying with that hire, well, hey, this is a professional model now. So we'll just hire a head coach that's going to run it like a professional football organization. Like, we're going to have somebody who runs the money side, and he'll be the CEO of the organization. I mean, that's essentially what that hire said to me. Like, dude, Bill ain't gonna be out on the road like helicoptering around like Kirby. It's just that's not gonna happen.
I do love one thing I do love about this era in the transfer portal and NIL, I do feel like, as far as talent goes, I mean, they're still the cream of the crop, but as far as talent goes, it's much more spread out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more competitiveness between, not necessarily 1 through 6, but like 6 through 50. Feels like it's much that gap is much closer than it used to be. I mean, look at like Boise State and stuff. So I don't know. I do like that. I'm not a fan of the unlimited transfers. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I still think there should be a limit on that. Like, I mean, I'm not for just one, but I mean, cap it at 2. I mean, this every year crap is, I mean,
It's crazy.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some kids that are going to transfer every single year and never see the field anywhere. They're just never going to play
Yeah.
football. They're going to constantly get in the transfer portal and live off of their high school rating because they're never going to
Yeah.
see the field anywhere. So
Yeah, I think that's the other thing is, and look, this is some. There's a cultural piece of this where you have, dude, we're putting ratings on these kids and we don't know what they are, and it's all projection, and there's no apples to apples comparisons. I mean, look, man, we had conversations with this a ton with Brock Vandegrift, who, by all accounts, awesome kid, everybody loves, everybody roots for, but it's just, dude, he was a Prince Avenue Christian. Like, it's a different talent pool that he was playing against compared to other guys. And so then what happens is you get put in a pool with high level talent and it just doesn't translate in play. So like 5-star recruit by all these rating services, but then it's like, is that really what they were? And I mean, I don't think it's good for anybody, you know, like I don't think it's good for the kid because then you have all these expectations that they either feel they have to live up to or people feel that they have to live up to. And it's like, man, it's just a brand new ball game. Like it's clean slate once you get on campus. And so I think what happens is you have kids who don't have the patience then to sit around and develop. And dude, how many cases have there been? We're obviously slanted towards Georgia because we pay attention to that the most. But how many cases are there of kids that hang around and then as a 4th or 5th year, they play great and do well? I mean, you look at like a Channing Tindall, look at a Robert Beal, guys that stayed and benefited from it. I thought it was an interesting thing, and I wonder how it would have played out. And I thought it was very interesting given his announcement for the NFL draft. But dude, look at Pop going to Kentucky.
Yeah,
that was obviously purely about he wanted to get all of the snaps, and I'm cool with that. Okay, but the flip side of that is he could have stayed, and he would have been a valuable piece for this year's Georgia team. And I think in some ways probably elevates his draft stock more than this last year at Kentucky. No, like I just feel like that's true. And it felt like in his announcement, I don't think he wanted to leave. Like, dude, there was like a one-line thank you to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And there was like this whole thing about Georgia and Dog Nation and all this stuff. And it was kind of like, well, he obviously didn't want to leave, right? And so I don't know. I felt like that was interesting. And then given the injuries, man, I think he would have played a lot. Like,
it kind of reminded me a lot of A.D. Mitchell's. Like A.D. Mitchell talked about his daughter and like Texas for like a little bit, but the majority of his announcement was about Georgia and the development he got at Georgia. And it's like, you know, if his daughter would have been in Georgia, he probably would have stayed.
Well, I feel like Kirby kind of alluded to that when he was talking about all of this. When he said, look, man, we've had guys that have left and they regret it. And so, you know, they get feedback from guys like, man, we shouldn't have left, or like, we should have just stayed. I was thinking that when we were in Bloomington for IU Purdue and you had 3 kids on the Purdue roster that played at Georgia, and you're going, God, man, they would still be on this like elite level team, but instead they're at 1-11 Purdue, who fires their head coach. And like, dude, it's not like any of them are having like big years.
You can't tell me that the wide receivers wouldn't have gotten some run this year. CJ Smith wouldn't have got to play. CJ Smith's back in the portal. CJ Smith's back in the portal.
Dude, I thought CJ Smith tracked where he would have been a good player. I really did. And you know, I feel like we both always thought Nyland Green was a super curious case. Like, I felt like had the body type, super athletic, just couldn't put it together, I think, in that system. But he's one that, hey, man, who knows? With what the attrition looked like in that DB room and maybe another year, 18 months of development, maybe something clicks, and then he's a guy. And, yeah, I don't know. I think that's and I'm not saying that any of this is easy for an 18 to 22-year-old kid, right, to have to evaluate all this and make those decisions. Like, homie, I remember how I was at that age. You want – your patience is not great. You know what I mean?
It is not.
So, like, I get all that, and I get all those factors. That's why I respect the kids so much that have the foresight to stay and see it through. Because, like, man, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I really don't. It's just – and some of that I do think, too, is, especially as an athlete, dude, it's just ego. Like – just ego wise, you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that, man. This stinks. I'm not getting to play. And in some ways, you have to have an ego death to kind of like live it out. You know what I mean? And that's hard, dude, especially at that age where the ego is like hard to get in your car.
That is accurate.
Yeah, so it's different. Well, yeah, I mean, all that's interesting, all that's real, and all is going on right now amidst like this new college football world. Which, speaking of new college football world, we had first ever on campus playoff games last weekend. Which I want to talk to you about this because I was pretty irritated by the end of it all, man. Dude, I was so excited for the first round, and I thought it was so cool seeing all of these campus environments get to host these games. And look, none of the games turned out to be very good football games, okay? And instead of, I think, a celebration of these environments and the sport entering a new era, what ended up happening is people with voices across the sport turned it into, this is some type of indictment on A, who got in, and B, the committee has screwed up royally, and we shouldn't have gone to 12. And dude, it was essentially just every nitpick you could find, right? And I was so disgusted with all of it. It was just like, dude, get over yourselves. Like, we just had 4 extra games that actually mattered. And whether or not they ended up being the greatest football games of all time, who cares? Like, get over yourselves, man. Like, I was so done with all of it. Like, I tweeted out after Tennessee went down 2 scores, Tennessee shouldn't have gotten a bid to the playoff. Am I doing this right? Because that's essentially all it was all weekend, was people jumping on to immediately proclaim that Team A and Team B didn't deserve to be here. Well, like, dude, what are we arguing about? Like, we're pissed off because 3-loss Ole Miss, 3-loss Alabama, and 3-loss South Carolina didn't get in. Like, don't lose. I can't get past all that. And you got Kirk Herbstreit going on TV, which, dude, I also want to preface this by saying Herbstreit's fantastic, all right? And if anybody gets some rope on this stuff, I'll give it to Herbie, because I don't know that there are 5 people nationwide who are more responsible for the growth of the game than Herbie, right? Like, he's been involved and around for so long and promotes the game and loves the game. But I have felt like over the last, not just this season, homie, but like 3 to 4 years, he has been on edge about whatever it is, right? And I think really quick to like kind of snap on stuff. And man, I just thought he was really off the mark this weekend with how it was all evaluated, and kind of holier than thou about all of it. And it was like, dude, get over yourself, man. Like, how is Indiana being in the playoff not a great story? And like, we're biased, okay? I think we both loved their story and loved what it was for college football. But like, why did everyone have such a big issue with them being in? Like, so what that their schedule stunk? Like, was it not a beautiful story that 11-1 Indiana was in the dance? And like, how awesome was it as from a character perspective where Signetti inserts himself into this conversation? What's wrong with all that for the college football narrative as a whole? Like, I just had zero issue with that. Same with SMU going to Penn State. Like, first off, if you watched any of those games, like most games, a couple plays go differently and all those games look different score-wise. So, like, I just think, oh, God, it was just overreaction central, homie. And, like, I will step down off my soapbox now, but it just irritated me to death.
I will say, I'm neither here nor there on Herbstreit. Like, you know, sometimes I love him. Sometimes I'm just like, dude, just shut up. And I feel like that I agree with you. He does get a lot of leeway, but it's like it's wearing thin, I feel like, like the last couple
100%. Well, I think he's pushing the boundary on it.
So as far as that, I'm neither here nor there. But let's, as far as the games go, you're right. They were not good football games, but I'm not going to sit here and harp on the fact about Indiana. I absolutely feel like Indiana deserved to be there. You're right. Yeah. They played a terrible schedule. But if you look at Georgia's schedule last year, they had a cupcake schedule for the majority of the season. You know, they played Tennessee and they played Alabama and Ole Miss. So, but before that, like, you look at their first like 8 games, they were all just, I mean,
laughers.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, like we talk about it all the time. You change the uniform, you make that team Michigan, you make that team,
Yeah.
even Michigan State, I feel like, a team with history.
Yeah.
So, and people are looking at that team completely differently. And that's who gives a shit. Sorry. Um, I'm getting salty. So it's one of those things that I just don't understand it. I mean, and I'm all about history when it comes to college football, but I don't get this bias about the team. Yeah, right. It wasn't a good game, but these are games we weren't supposed to have, and these are teams. This is what we wanted, was to have teams have that aren't normally in the playoff to have shots to get there.
100%.
So
Yeah.
we got what we wanted, and
Mhm.
people are still complaining about it.
I know.
Like,
I do think that is a symptom of the culture, right? Like people are looking to be salty about something. And I think that's the part I had such an issue with. It's like, what are we complaining about? Like, are we that upset that the winner of the Penn State SMU game is not going to get awarded the 3x3 animal style in and out trophy? Like, what is so bad about that? Like, dude, I don't get it at all. And like, I don't have any sympathy for the Alabama thing or even the Ole Miss thing. And really even the South Carolina thing. And I'll probably irritate South Carolina fans, but here's my thing with them, okay? You could make the argument that, yes, South Carolina was one of the hottest teams in America. But also I'm going to make the argument, who did they beat? Well, how is their argument any different than Indiana's, right? Like, they beat Clemson, who became the ACC champion, but then, like, I think you have a conversation about, well, who did Clemson beat, right? Like, every ranked team they played, they lost to.
yeah, except for SMU, which they beat, which is one of your arguments for teams who shouldn't be there. So you're contradicting yourself. So
Yeah,
it's
like,
just, it's a circle.
I just feel like with South Carolina, beat somebody, like beat Alabama, beat Ole Miss, beat LSU, and I know everybody's going to raise hell about the LSU thing, and I get it. Okay, I made the argument myself that if Lenore Sellers plays that whole game, they probably beat LSU, but they didn't. Okay, and so really, their three toughest games, they lost. So like, I just, those teams played themselves out. It's like these same people who moan about, well, the regular season doesn't matter. It's like, well, it did matter. We used the regular season to say that those three teams didn't belong and justified the other three being in by how they played during their regular season. But now that's not good enough. It's like even Kirk goes on and says, I don't know why we're getting so stuck with who wins and what the win-loss record looks like. It's like, well, I mean, dude, at some point it has to matter a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
it
know,
can't
man.
just be. It can't be just Alabama should get in because they beat Georgia. Ole Miss
Yeah.
should get in because they beat Georgia. That can't just be the end all be all. Alabama lost to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Like,
Yes.
Ole Miss lost to Kentucky at home. Like, they can't be that way. On top of that, it's one of those situations. Like, I feel like there's a lot of revisionist history going on with, like, people talking about the 14 playoff and how great it was. Most of the quarterfinal games are blowouts.
Yeah, they stunk. Yeah.
And it's like I feel like people are like expecting these great games. I'm not so sure that these next games are going to be any better than the last four we saw. They, on paper, they may be, but I mean, Ohio State, Oregon probably will be. But I'm expecting some pretty big margins in the other three.
I do think in some ways the model they created was built to fail, right?
Oh,
because you're not actually seeding teams based on where they should be seeded. You're
Correct.
seeding them with these preconditions where it's like, oh, well, if they're the highest ranked conference champion, well, like, dude, nobody in America thinks that Boise State should have gotten a first round bye. Nobody.
Correct.
Except people that live in Treasure Valley. Like, that's it. Those are the only folks that think that they should have gotten a bye, right? And I think people would tell you the same thing about Arizona State. Nobody thinks that Arizona State should have gotten a bye. And so if you flip some of these matchups where the actual top four teams were seeded, and then you had matchups where Boise State and Arizona State had to play first round games, dude, I think we're having probably different conversations.
Exactly.
And so, I just think, and they're going to discuss all that, and I think that will change. I don't think that's going to stick post 25. I think we'll see a change in that as soon as 26. But
with 2 more
yeah.
teams.
Yeah, they're going to add more teams, which is. I mean, look, we've been very vocal about this. Jimmy and I are completely fine with them having 16, 24. Pick your number.
Yep.
It's fine with
Pick your
us.
number.
Like, we come from the FCS level where it's 24. Every single conference gets an automatic bid, and they have at-larges. And you play on campus until the finals, and it's stinking awesome. Also, here's my other thing, man. People moaning and complaining about more games and a playoff. It's like, dude, why are we so romantically attached to bowl games and the bowl subdivision postseason? Like, I don't understand it. Every single level of football, from like middle school to the NFL, we decide with a playoff. Why have we not been doing that at the highest level of college football? Like, intellectually, I can't wrap my brain around that.
Like, and I'm fine with the bowls, like, you know, being part of the playoffs too. But like, who cares about the Cheez-It Bowl, or what's the one going on right now? The game above
Gasparilla Bowl?
No, the game above Sports Bowl. What the hell is that?
Yeah, dude. It's
not
all,
saying
man.
Not saying that there aren't some entertaining games that come in bowl season. I'm all for it. But who cares unless you're a fan of those schools, or you're a gambling addict? Who cares?
Yeah. Dude, like, here's my thing too. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you another example. Even like the Cotton Bowl, okay? Cotton Bowl, super historical, okay? Homie, it ain't the Cotton Bowl anymore.
No,
they don't play it at the Cotton Bowl. Like, no,
I agree.
I just we're holding on to things that aren't real and deifying them. And it's like, okay, for me, man, they can get rid of all of them. I don't care about any of them except the Rose Bowl. All right. They can get rid of all of them. Let's play every single game on campus, and then the national championship game is at the Rose Bowl every year.
Yeah.
Yes. No problems with that. Not one issue with it at all. And here you go. Some people have floated like an NIT style thing for like the second tier. Play all those at the bowls if you want.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with that. And have some sponsor have that. I'll tell you what, I can get behind the Pop-Tarts NIT Bowl Showdown. Where the title game is for the Pop-Tarts Bowl trophy. I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
all right?
That works.
Yeah. But those are things I can get behind.
These second tier bowls, unless you have an attachment to the teams, or you have some emotional attachment because you're from that city.
Yeah.
Like I remember like going to the Gator Bowl a couple years. Now, I'm not from Jacksonville or anything, but going to that bowl like several years in a row, like just for fun. For some reason, we decided to go to Jacksonville several years on New Year's when I was a senior in high school and then freshman and sophomore year of college. Don't remember why, but we did. Me and a bunch of friends. Yeah. And that was fun. But I couldn't tell you who's been in the Gator Bowl since Georgia was in it 2 years in a row against Nebraska. Or once against Nebraska in like 2013.
Which, again, they don't play the Gator Bowl at the Gator Bowl anymore.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. It's
same thing with it's same thing with the Orange Bowl. It's like the Orange Bowl doesn't even exist anymore.
I know.
Like, I just think we've gone crazy. I would rather see a damn playoff game at the Sun Bowl if we're having an honest conversation.
Yeah.
I'd rather them go to El Paso and play at the darn Sun Bowl, because at least we're still in the Sun Bowl. Like, if we're going to be having conversations about history, let's do it at places that actually have history, not places that have a name plastered on a 100,000 seat stadium. Like, I just did it so stupid to me. Anyways, enough about that. Okay.
We've gone on our tangents for the day.
Yes, both big tangents, but both things that are, I still think, very valid to talk about. Let's talk about our trip a little bit that we took, because we haven't talked about this, because we got home. It was after Thanksgiving, go straight back to work. It was SEC Championship week. A lot of other things to talk about, right? But I do want to talk about the trip, because it's the first time we did a road trip. And first off, we'd be super remiss if we did not, from the jump, thank the SID staffs at the University of Wisconsin and at the University of Indiana for hosting us, providing us with the opportunity to come cover both those games, which was incredible.
Awesome. Absolutely
and
awesome.
The access that we had at both institutions was unbelievable. I think we would both be in full agreement that each experience was first class. Like, your first time in Madison. Dude, it was my
Yes.
first time in Madison in 20 years. And it was both of our first times in Bloomington. So let's talk about the Madison trip first, because we went to that one first. We flew into Madison Thanksgiving night. We landed in Madison, and it was a balmy 17 degrees with a stiff wind gust. And as we pull into our hotel, we stayed at the Graduate in Madison, Wisconsin, which was very cool.
Very nice.
Like,
yeah.
First Graduate property I've ever stayed at, and I will stay at them again if we are given the opportunity, because it was really, really cool. But yeah, dude, started snowing as we are parking in the lot there to go into the hotel, which was a hot start to the trip, to be honest. But yeah, so we had spotted cows. Oh, that was a funny story. So everybody told us, all right, you go to Madison, go to Wisconsin, you got to get spotted cows. Only place you can get them is in Wisconsin. So, okay. So we go to this convenience store, and we buy some road trip snacks at the convenience store, and we get a 6-pack of spotted cow. We take everything up to the checkout. We plop it on the counter, and the guy looks at us. He's like, "It can't sell you that." We're like, "What's the problem, dude?" He's like, "It's past 9 o'clock." We're like, "Come again?" So what? Past 9 o'clock. So what? Yeah, man, we can't sell you booze past 9 o'clock. It's like, dude, it's 9:08. We can't get a 6-pack right now. What is happening? So that was that got shot down really quickly. But we did end up getting a spotted cow at the Graduate Hotel bar.
Yes.
So that was good. Jimmy
shout out to
liked
Spencer.
it.
Shout out to
Spencer. Yep, our bartender Spencer. Shout out. He was great. But yeah, dude, we were up bright and early Friday morning because the kick was 11 o'clock.
Yeah, 11 o'clock.
So I got up early, woke my boy up early. He was, let me tell you, my man was slept straight through kickoff. He was killing it.
It was a rough day.
I had to roll him out early. Give me your impressions of kind of the drive. I took you to the Union. It was super cold. We saw Lake Mendota front and center. I mean, what'd you think about Madison? What'd you think about Camp Randall? What'd you think about the whole day?
Madison's beautiful. I'd love to get some more time to actually experience it, like not on Thanksgiving weekend. Didn't really get a whole lot of time because we had to run straight to the game. It was cold. I honestly, it got a little bit warmer throughout the day, but not much. My hair literally froze when we first walked outside.
That's right.
My beard froze. It was very interesting. Haven't had that happen in a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a beautiful college town. Really is. Very spread out. I was a little bit surprised about that. Didn't realize how spread out it was.
Huge campus.
Huge campus. Camp Randall, beautiful stadium. Absolutely beautiful stadium. Had only ever seen it on TV. Atmosphere, even for a Thanksgiving weekend, was awesome. I mean, it wasn't full. Obviously Wisconsin did not have a very good year this year, but I think it was a pretty good crowd. I think it's about 70% full.
Dude, 11 o'clock local kick day after Thanksgiving, and it was 20 degrees. They did pretty good.
They did pretty good. And we talked about on the episode the guys tailgating, A+ tailgate with
I gotta tell you,
Frades.
I'm glad you bring this up. Let me tell you something. If I had one regret from our trip, if I could go back, I would have gone right back. So we had to walk across this overpass to get, dude, because there's a main thoroughfare in Madison that bisects the campus essentially.
Yeah.
So you have to walk over like an overpass to get to the second side of campus where Camp Randall is. So we're walking from our parking lot there. And on the way, we see this couple with the freaking like a meat truck, like a panel truck. And with a ramp on it, the whole deal. And they are wheeling out like not one, not two, not three, like 8 like porch heaters, right? Like industrial heaters for their tailgate area. And then they have a full-sized refrigerator in the truck, where we then saw there were taps off the side of the fridge where they had built their own kegerator. Homie, this was a screw up on my part. We should have done a U-turn back down the steps, gone immediately over there, and asked them, like, hey, look, y'all don't know us at all, and this is going to sound idiotic, but can we do our show from the back of your truck? Like, Number one, it would have been excellent to have the heaters, but number two, like maybe get a pull off the kegerator like mid show, like it would have been excellent theater. So when we go back, which we will go back, I want to film a show in the back of their truck. That's what I want to do. We should have done it.
So no,
that was
awesome.
That was a mess up on my part. But go ahead. I just had to interject that.
So, and then getting to the stadium, I mean, that was great as well. Like getting up to the press box, first time for me ever being in a press box. So, I mean, view was excellent, and just the whole experience itself up there was excellent. But we did go outside with about 2 or 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and Wisconsin was down, but they were making a comeback at this point. So the stadium was getting a little electric right before jump around. So that was amazing. Feeling the whole stadium shake as that was going on. That was so cool. So, and then shortly after that, they missed a field goal, and then the game's pretty much over after that when Minnesota goes down and scores again and basically keeps the ball the entire fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But then we get to go down, and we went down for a PJ Fleck's press conference, which was right next to the visitors' locker room, and you can hear them going nuts in the locker room. And then Fleck comes out and just A+ quotes.
Oh yeah.
I swear to God, I still want an R North shirt in Minnesota colors. Like that was just awesome. He's just it reinvigorated my love for him. Like I started kind of soured on him a little bit over the last year or so, but man, he's awesome. So it was a great experience in Madison.
Well, I'll tell you the cool thing about that too is we got to the hotel in Bloomington Friday night, and on SportsCenter they showed the locker room, and so we got to see
what was going on,
what we had heard, because the way it was set up was the locker room is here, and there was a little auxiliary door which PJ came out of for the press conference, because dude, the visitors press conference is in like the media photo workroom, which is
a shoebox.
Yeah, dude, it's like the size of a bedroom, and so but in some ways that was cool because, like, I mean, dude, we could have reached out and touched PJ during his press conference, and he was electric. I'll tell you the thing I loved about Camp Randall, which, to your point, really, really nice stadium. And we found out afterwards that one end zone, that south end zone, had just been redone, and it was awesome. Like it was a cool place to watch the game, because I really don't think there would be a bad seat in that stadium. I mean, it was really nice. Yeah, like really, really cool stadium. Good place to watch. To your point, vantage point from the press box was incredible. Very nice press box at Wisconsin. It was nice. And dude, we talked about this, but you know, it's kind of like watching the All-22 tape. I mean, you're not behind the quarterback like that traditional All-22 vantage point, but you just can see everything. And so, like, you could see angles, you could see what the thought was, like, during the game planning offensively and defensively. And, like, you know, like, look, man, the long and short of it for Wisconsin is they didn't have a quarterback. I mean, that's just it. Kid from Minnesota was good. Like, I really enjoyed watching him play.
They also don't, like, this was another thing, as compared to past Wisconsin teams, they don't have the beef on the offensive line. Their defensive line is still pretty good, but their offensive line is just, you know, it's not. And going into that game, we were reading, like we were doing our research for it, they were averaging like 160 yards a game rushing. I think they had like 17 or 18 yards rushing going into the fourth quarter. Like, Minnesota just shut them down. Oh, in Minnesota, I don't remember the guy's name, but number 0 was, if you ever get a chance to go watch this guy's highlights, first of all, amazing defensive lineman.
Yeah, he's great.
After the play, absolutely hysterical. He was doing all kinds of like jumps and like points, and like, just, he's a character, like great personality on the field. Amazing character. I wish I remember the kid's name, but he was absolutely hysterical. We were laughing at him all game long.
Dude, I'm pretty sure he's the guy we got on camera with Paul Bunyan's axe coming off the field. He is coming off the field.
Yeah. Yep, he had it coming off the field. Oh, and I read after the game that they actually broke the axe in the locker room. Yeah, they broke the axe. I don't know how, like, if it was like broken in half or something, but they broke some part of the axe in the locker room.
Yeah, so PJ said during the press conference they bust to the game.
Yeah.
Bust there, hours. Bust home. Yeah. So they want, like, part of their blue collar mentality, they're gonna bust the game. Which I thought, hey, that's cool. So they got it halfway and had a workout.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was great. I enjoyed that a lot. I'll tell you the other thing I loved is, dude, Camp Randall, it reminded me of Wrigley. It sits directly in the middle of a neighborhood. Like, you walk out the gate and you're in somebody's front yard. Like,
Yep.
it was cool. And you could tell, like, all those front yards, had kegs out, people were tailgating early, which, again, I'm sure if it was not an 11 o'clock local kick, it would have been an entire scene around that stadium. Like, what was the Mickey's Dairy Bar was right outside the stadium,
Yes,
which we were gonna go get breakfast there, and that didn't work out. But like, that was packed. To your point, that's probably my only regret about that portion of the trip, is that we didn't get like any lead-in time or post-game time really in Madison. We just didn't have a choice. Like, time-wise, it was tight. Which it all worked out, I think, fine. We did go to Ian's and
got some pizzas.
Ooh, yeah, that was really, really good.
Excellent.
Just let me put out a suggestion here. First off, if you go to Ian's, if you go to Madison, you must go to Ian's to get pizza. And when you go to Ian's, you must get the mac and cheese pizza. You can choose whatever else you want, but you must get the mac and cheese pizza. I will submit, Jimmy and I got the buffalo chicken pizza. And on the way from Madison to Bloomington, I told Jimmy, I said, take me a piece of that mac and cheese and slap a piece of that buffalo chicken straight on top and give it to me like a stromboli. That's how I'm going to eat it as we're going down the highway. And it was glorious. It was excellent. So, yeah, definitely do that. I would, to your point, I would love to go back to Madison and spend like a full weekend. Yeah. I think that was probably the lesson of our trip, was to really cover it, I think, how we would choose to cover it, which is to like highlight different places within the town. I think we would go for like a weekend instead of doing a double dip. But I am glad we did it the way we did it, because it was it was super unique, because we left not immediately post game. I mean, we didn't leave Madison until 4 or 5 o'clock. Yeah. But like, we drove from Madison to Bloomington on Friday night post game, and it was a full every bit of 6 hours, that drive. And so we were buzzing through, and we ended up watching the entire Georgia Tech game, Clean Old Fashioned Hate, on Jimmy's iPad, like going down the highway. Regulation.
We got there right as overtime started.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually, I think, in some ways happy that there was overtime, because we got to see a portion of the game on a real television. So, yeah, we were having mild anxiety attacks. Well, first off, that game was such a roller coaster. So I feel like for most of the drive, we're like, what is happening right now? Like, we're in some type of alternative reality. We're in the upside down right now. This is what happened. Yeah. We drove through a portal on the Illinois-Indiana state line, and now we're in the upside down. Like, that's what it felt like. But, yeah, dude, we get into our hotel, watch the end of the game. It was awesome. We were stinking elated. And then I think the adrenaline kicked in. And, like, I don't think we went to bed that night till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
It was around 2. Yeah, when we finally were both like, were like, all right, let's go to bed. And then we got up early the next day.
We got up early again the next day. And, dude, we head out to Bloomington. And our hotel was less than 1 mile from the football stadium.
It was really close.
And the way the campus is situated, which, first off, let's just put this out there. And this is completely on me. Indiana and Bloomington was not on my radar. Like, Bloomington as a college town was not on my radar. And that was a huge whiff on my part. That town is awesome. Like, first off, let's just take the town out of it, okay? And let's just talk about IU Bloomington's campus, all right? We take a right out of our hotel, and we're essentially on the road for less than 3 minutes, and we're at the edge of their campus. So we enter through this, like, beautiful, Indiana University stone gateway, and it's the entire athletic complex. So it's practice football field, baseball field, assembly hall, Memorial Stadium. Like, it was awesome. And it's all just bang, bang, bang right there with all these like huge parking lots. So it's like I feel like accessible from a spectator perspective to go to all these places. And then like you just drive through the campus, and I was just struck by green space everywhere. And then like the architecture on the campus is all uniform. It was all beautiful. And then it leads directly to the other edge of campus, which is downtown Bloomington. So like, I just feel like it was this self-contained, I don't know, just perfect college ecosystem. Like, I can imagine going to school there is probably incredible because you never have to leave the four walls of campus. Like, school's there, downtown's there, Eaton's there. It's all there. Like, it was awesome.
And the stadium there also is right in the middle of a neighborhood.
Right in the middle of a neighborhood. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Like I that's the other thing I was struck by, which we'll talk about downtown Bloomington too, but dude, the tailgate scene there was awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
they
we
were
started shooting really early, and they were already going.
they were
So
going. It was 8 o'clock local kick, and they were out there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, raring to go, and it was not warm in Bloomington, Indiana.
well, it was warmer than
It was
Wisconsin.
it was. I feel like it was. We felt like it was great until like 4 o'clock,
Yeah, when it
and then
started snowing.
4 o'clock that cold front came in, and it started snowing, and it was like, whew, it got cold super quick. But homie, we went downtown to Bloomington, and I think we were both like, what have we walked into right now? Like
Yeah,
downtown Bloomington is like out of a book or something.
yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was very nostalgic. Like it just you walk
Yeah,
in and it's like you walk into like 100 years ago. Which I mean,
yeah,
Nick's obviously been around forever, but it was very old style buildings. Like obviously inside they're renovated and stuff. But man, you just walk into this old time downtown feeling. One stoplight. Can walk everywhere, anywhere you want, go in and out of places. It just very much a college town. So and it was very awesome. We went into many shops down there. You got your
yeah.
Snetti shirt. I can't remember the place where we went ate, but
Village
you
Deli.
Village Deli, yeah, you
Yeah.
wanted to order way too much food,
Yes.
as usual. But the
Yes.
food was excellent. We went and crashed at the hotel for a little bit before we went back out after that. Then went to Nick's, which absolutely amazing food. God, if I could get those French fries again, oh man, they were so good.
Unbelievable. Shout out Rags and all the beautiful people at Nick's English Hut. It was stinking outstanding. Please go listen to that episode, and if you're ever in Bloomington, go to Nick's. That is
Yes,
imperative that you go
go
there.
to Nick's. Yes, absolutely. It was
Dude,
amazing food.
I want to go back and go to the Hoosier Room, like the upstairs.
Oh yeah. So we didn't make it there. And then
But I
we
will
got.
say, I liked our booth.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So very much old style, booths. And I mean, it's an English pub, and it's very much has that feel. But it's an Indiana themed English pub with Indiana, paraphernalia everywhere, pictures from like the history of. I mean, it's been around 100 years or almost 100 years. So I mean, paraphernalia from like pictures from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and on through, which is just a great feel, especially if you're a Hoosier fan. So
Yeah.
and we love history, so for us it was awesome. Then we went to the rooftop bar. Was that where we ended up to watch the Michigan game?
No, we went to Upstairs Pub.
Upstairs pub. So
Also, very cool spot.
very cool spot. From the outside, looks very small. When you're inside, though, it's a large place. And one Michigan fan in there. One Michigan fan in there was going nuts that entire game. It was very hysterical. So for the Michigan Ohio State game, so that was entertaining. And then after that, we went to the press box. Once we finally got in, we had to wait an hour outside in the frigid snow. But
Yeah. That's we. Dude, one thing I would like to go back to upstairs too is they have another bar on the other side from where we were, where they have it's like the actual sports bar, where they have a full-sized replica of the scoreboard in Assembly Hall. Like
yeah, I know
at
you
the
sent me a
bar.
picture of that. We completely missed that. How did we miss that?
Well, dude, it's on the other side. Like you had to go outside, walk across the patio, and it was in that part. Like totally different set.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a cool spot. And upstairs does a bunch of cool stuff during season. I mean, that was a cool spot. I would, if we went back, I would go to Nick's and then go to the Hoosier Room this time, just because I think that'd be cool to see that part of it. And I mean, I would want to hang out with Rex. I'd want to hang out at Nick's with Rex after talking to him. Like he was awesome and just made me love that place even more. Like the stories he told and everything. So it was awesome. Speaking on that, we are going to have next week the owner of Eskimo Joe's in Stillwater, Oklahoma on. That will be our second highlight in the Campus Icon series. As soon as people say yes, we will have them on. So they will be the second one. But yeah, man, I'm just super interested. I mean, I think we always have been, but especially after our trip, I'm so compelled by these places that are completely singular to these college towns where they are nowhere else. They exist only there. And I don't know, it's one of those things where you have to go to kind of experience it and understand it. it's one of those things where you must breathe the air of that place to kind of get it. And so, man, I've got pretty much a list of like 30, and I've reached out to all of them, and I'm just waiting to get yeses from folks. So as they continue to trickle in, we will highlight people. And if you have places in different college towns that you want to have highlighted, shoot them to us, because I'll reach out to them and get their story, man. I'm interested in all of it. So yeah, man, I love Bloomington. I think we were both pretty taken with Memorial Stadium. It's obviously older, but like, dude, the environment that night was incredible. I mean, dude, it was snowing. They gave out white towels to everybody in the stadium. And like, I just feel like people were jacked. It was awesome.
No, the stadium atmosphere was awesome. And I mean, it's an older stadium, but they have done some major renovations on that place. We got to walk through the athletic complex, which was awesome. We got to walk through the weight room. The press conference where we saw Signetti at the end. Everything in there has been redone. I don't know how long when that was done. I mean, obviously, Indiana's only become really good at football. Like, this is their first year that they've been really profitable, I would think, other than when Penix was there that one year, before he got hurt. But the money comes in from basketball at that school. That's a basketball school.
Yeah.
So,
Assembly Hall was nice.
It really was. We didn't get to see the basketball court, but we getting to see all the like statues and the trophies and everything. Man, that thing was awesome. So you walk in there and they have the big Indiana symbol across the when you walk in. Really, really nice. But I mean, Memorial Stadium, very, very, very. I mean, another place, not a bad seat in the house. You could sit literally anywhere in that stadium and have a good vantage point. Yeah. Also, I mean, we saw a ton of points scored, but very great environment was scored. With points were scored every touchdown. They had fireworks. They had a cannon. Very cool environment as well with that stuff.
Yeah, man, I thought, it's Memorial Stadium. So, like, they had a gigantic flagpole in one corner of one of the end zones where they raised an enormous American flag during the Star Spangled Banner. The IU band was playing it, and then the entire stadium, like, sang it. I mean, it was cool. The whole environment was cool. I thought their marching band was great. And look, man, I'm not one way or the other about bands, but, like, they were good. It was like I watched their show, and it was just a cool presentation. And because of the way the press pass worked there, we actually got to be on the field post game for like the presentation of the old oaken bucket, and like we got footage of them kind of carrying the bucket across the field. I mean, it was awesome. I will say, I don't think we've talked about this, but the tenor and vibe of PJ Fleck's press conference versus Kirk Signetti's press conference were very different animals. Like, Sig is just, different animal, man. Like, I think he's more guarded, and I think a little bit saltier than PJ is. Like, dude, PJ understands the game, and he understands the messaging piece of it, and like, I think massages that, right? Does a good job from a PR perspective. Sig's like, I really don't want to be talking to any of you jabronis. Like, you all get on my nerves, and I don't want to be here.
Yeah, there were a couple of times in the press conference where someone would say something, and he'd like cut them off, and then they would have to reword their question.
Yeah.
So, and it was just like, and these are people he's talked to all season. So it's like, damn. All right. Yeah, he's a character. So, and I mean, he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way Friday night when he was on the set before the Notre Dame game.
He did, man. But I'm gonna tell you something. That's what I love about it. I love it. And if you're an IU fan, and if you're part of that program, that's what I want, baby. Nobody believes in us. Nobody cares about us. I want our head guy to be like, y'all can all shove it up your ass. Like, we're here. Deal with it. And I was okay with it. Now, granted, it didn't work out great, and I didn't think I don't know, man. It was weird, but they were tight for sure. I thought they were tight from the jump. Dude, they get that pick on the opening possession, and you're going downhill, man. Like, you got to score there, and then if they score there and go up, everything is in their court, right?
Yeah,
Because
everything loosens up.
yeah, and that team is not built to play from behind. So Rourke looked just out of sorts all night long. Like he looked, I don't know. They seemed like they were on pucker alert from like 3 minutes into the game on. Like it was just not, I think, what we had grown accustomed to seeing throughout the year. I had kind of thought Ohio State was going to provide a blueprint for them where they'd been there, they'd kind of gotten it out of their system, and then they'd be able to show up and be who they were. They could not. The moment was too big for them. That's what I felt like watching it. I mean, they should have scored at least twice in the first quarter, and they just couldn't do it. And in some ways, I do think, and it was the same way in the Ohio State game, they just got out athleted. I mean, the 98-yard run by Love, like, dude, they literally just didn't have a guy that could catch him. Yeah. That's the long and short of it. And
one bad angle and he was gone.
That's it. And it was a bad angle. Whew. But yeah, man, that was interesting. And I think because of that, what has now happened is everybody and their mama is on the Irish in the Sugar Bowl. Like Georgia's playing a backup quarterback, Notre Dame's prime position, blah 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 blah, and I'm sitting there going, guys, are we watching them play? Like, first off, their best defensive player is now not going to play because he's injured after the IU game. So, like, I'm just telling y'all, man, Notre Dame ain't seen nobody like this roster. So, y'all better buckle in, baby.
This is, I mean, we'll do our deep dive. This is not a game that I'm, like, overly, like, nervous about. I'm not, I don't know. Notre Dame just doesn't. They don't worry me. That like I texted you, they remind me a lot of Georgia Tech, but Leonard is not the runner that Haynes King is, and they don't have a wide receiver on the outside like Singleton to stretch them. So this team is more built to just run it down your throat, and that runs right into the strength of Georgia's defense. They don't do the eye candy to run the quarterback powers and stuff to get the linebackers to shift. That's not their style. Their style is we're going to line up and we're going to punch you in the mouth and we're going to run it down your throat. Please do that all day long. Do it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me is I think it's really just going to become a Jimmy's and Joe's thing. And I think really if you want to talk about whether people should have been in or not, the fact that Notre Dame has gotten a narrative pass on this whole thing is insane to me. That it's just, oh yeah, Notre Dame absolutely should have been in. They absolutely should have hosted a home playoff game. And we now think they can make a run. It's like, guys, who in the hell did Notre Dame beat this year? Who did they overcome that we should go, oh yeah, it's a good football team? What are we still hanging our hat on their week 1 win at College Station over a sorry ass Texas A&M team? Like, come on, man. And to your point, yes, please bring what they do straight to this Georgia defense. Like, dude, there's just nothing they do is what scares you if you're a Georgia football fan. Like, and to your point, Riley is not truly a dual threat quarterback. Like, he is not Jalen Milroe where he can hurt you with his arm. Like, he's just not. He's not even Jackson Dart that can hurt you with his arm, right? Like, he's not those guys. And so I'm with you, man. I just think it schematically is something that lines up very, very well for Georgia. And the flip side of that is I think offensively, they don't have to do a lot of sexy stuff either, meaning they don't have to get crazy with Gunner. I think they can line up and run the ball 35 to 40 times and score enough points to win the football game. I really do.
Yeah, I really think that, like, I mean, I've texted you this several times. I think that this offense is going to revert back to 2017 Jake's freshman year with Chubb and Sony, and this is going to be the Nate Etienne show, and we're just going to pound the rock, play action, run Gunner, and we're going to try to throw the ball 20 times a game at most and protect their quarterback. And I think that that's the type of offense we're going to revert to, but I think Gunner, as far as he has that element with his legs, that if the pass isn't there, he can run for 2 to 3 yards, whereas Jake never had that.
Yeah.
We haven't had a quarterback that can do that consistently. Like Stetson would do that, but Stetson was looking to throw the ball every single time unless he absolutely had to run. Gunner's going to look to run if it's not there.
Yeah, I think Gunner at quarterback truly makes them. The opposing defense has to play hat on hat football. Like you have to play 11v11. Like there's no cheat there. There's no shade. You're gonna have to have somebody responsible and accountable for Gunner because he can do enough to present a problem. Like, and dude, I don't think he has to bust these like 20, 25-yard runs. To your point, man, it's just keeping them in favorable down and distance. So
Yep.
you keep us in 2nd and 8 instead of 2nd and 12 or like whatever it may be. I just think it's going to present them with more options. I think the other thing it's going to do is it's going to create more opportunities for Frazier and Etienne. Because you're going to have the defender hang on the read, right? And so it's going to present a different dynamic. And I think especially as Trevor gets healthier, boy, are they a dynamic duo.
Well, that's another thing that no one's talking about. No one's talking about how banged up Georgia has been really since Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And this time off for Georgia, I think benefits them more than any other team because it's not just Trevor. Like Ernest has been hurt. Now, granted, we've been talking about Monroe and how great he's played, and I hope Monroe still plays. But if they need to put Ernest in, Ernest is there. Ernest has not been there. Like he played a couple plays in the SEC championship game when Monroe went down, but Ernest has not been healthy enough to really play at all.
Yeah.
There have been several players that have not been healthy enough to play at all. Tate has still been battling through an injury. Fairchild has been battling through an injury. These guys are finally going to be the healthiest they have been since November 1st. And this time off is really going to benefit this team a lot. Now, granted, most important piece, we're still missing our quarterback. But I'm not as concerned about that as I think a lot of people are. Vegas obviously only has this as a 2-point spread right now.
Yep.
So, which
I think there's a ton of unknown because the only sample size we have is the second half of the SEC title game, which in a lot of ways I don't think will end up being a true representation because of, you don't really have any chance to game plan. You don't really have any chance to install what you would do to play to that player's strength. They prepared that entire week and have prepared the entire season as if a pro-style passer was going to be the quarterback, right? Well, obviously Gunner is not that. I don't think anybody's going to make that argument. But the flip side is he gives them the ability to scheme some mismatches that, frankly, Carson didn't, right? Now, I will be interested, and we can talk about this more later, but I will be interested to see what the passing game looks like because I do think they're going to have to establish something there, right? And I don't just mean dink and dunk stuff. He's going to have to hit a couple of digs. He's going to have to hit a couple of outbreaking mid-range routes to kind of have the corners take a couple steps back and not be able to just sit at the line of scrimmage. Because I think in order for Georgia to be successful, they've got to exploit the boundary. And so, to do that, they got to establish the passing game a little bit. And so we'll see. I think that's the unknown that how do you prognosticate that yet? We can't. If I was them, man, I think I'd have in the script, first or second drive, we're going to take a shot or two. Because I think everybody and their mama is going to expect them to come out and kind of be muddle huddle left, muddle huddle right. You know what I mean? Whereas, dude, I think what you do is you zone read and pull it first play, and we're going to try to hit Arian down the field. And
I got a better play for you. Let's open up Flea Flicker.
Mississippi State Flea Flicker? Yeah.
Mississippi State Flea Flicker. Why not?
I don't hate that at all. Yeah, I something like that though, just because I think you got to let them know, hey, we're gonna let it rip a little bit.
Or and even a play that may not be bad either. Let's throw a little wrinkle. Let's throw a little Chicago, a Kenny McIntosh toss pass.
Yeah,
Like something that they're not going
Something.
to expect, just to throw them off balance.
Yeah, I think for me, and you know how I am, I'm always this way about it, but they have just got to come out and cut it loose. Like, it's win or go home now, baby. Like,
Yeah.
we're not leaving anything in the bag. Like, let it go. Let it eat from play one. Like, can we just turn the engine on to start the game and not wait until the first play of the second half? Like, they just it's time to go. It is time to go. So, all right. On that note, we'll clip it because we'll talk about this more. But yeah, that's where we're at. So that's that's all I got today, homie.
We have more, but we'll save it for next week because we're in an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll save it. If anybody's still listening, we'll clip it here.
Yeah.
It's a long time to hear us droning on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, and hope everyone is hurtling towards a fantastic start to 2025. And yeah, until next week, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.